Ladies, hey, there we go. Ladies and gentlemen, I am live unexpectedly. I wasn't really planning on necessarily doing an episode tonight, but hey, here we are. In fact, I kind of was prompted by someone in one of my chat rooms who was like, "Hey, you gonna do an episode tonight?" I'm like, "Yeah, why not?" After all, we got back from Mississippi earlier this afternoon, and I've had plenty of time to rest and sit and read a little bit, and it's been good. So, anyway, yeah, moving to Mississippi. I believe I've mentioned this before, so just real quick catch up. This is mostly work related. My plant is shutting down. They offered us a job with elsewhere in the company. The rest of the company is down south. So, that's where I'm going. And they happened to offer me a reassignment in Mississippi. Was not my first choice, was actually my second. But I'm cool with it because, like I said, second choice is better than fourth choice. You know what I'm saying? And yes, there's a fourth choice. And I just learned today that fourth choice is doing stupid COVID things. So there you go. But that's also, speaking of stupid COVID things, that's part of also the reason why I was even open to moving down to the South is because it just the world's gotten stupid in the last couple of years. Stupid, crazy, weird, and I wanted to be someplace where there's less concentrated stupid than there is in my state of Michigan, which, like most everywhere else, you get out of the cities and there's not much concentrated stupid really, for the most part. Although I kind of live in suburbia, and at my old place that we sold recently, I'm pretty sure both my neighbors are the kind of people that would go tisk 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 as you're getting carted off to the COVID camp. So that's one of the main reasons. That's one of the primary reasons we wanted to move. Is like move regardless of what was going on with work. And as it turns out, Mississippi has a little bit more COVID stupid than I was expecting. A fair amount, in unexpectedly large number of people were masked. There were a few stores and stuff that I saw with signs for it, with signs for masks on their front doors, which kind of surprised me. In fact, we went to mass at a St. Joseph's Church in Port Gibson, Mississippi, and there was actually a mask required sign on the door, which I was like, "What? Are you kidding me?" And this was like the first place we actually walked into, other than the hotel in Vicksburg the night before. It was really shocking, to be honest. But once we were in there for a little bit, it's like it was about half of the people in there were actually wearing them. So I was like, well, okay, I guess nobody really nobody really cares. Nobody cares enough to make anybody else make them at any rate. So okay, fine. I don't like it. Then it's a thing at all. But all right. So like I said, it was still surprising. Um, there are, like I said, there were a few places that seemed to be uptight about it, and some other people that were staying at the B&B that we were at mentioned something about how they like to go to Mackinac Island, but avoided it this year because of the COVID and all those people packed in tight. I'm like, what? like, I'm like, really? Okay. I know they're from Alabama, whatever. Uh, but again, it surprised me. So it's a bigger deal down there than what you think it is, which it kind of reminds you that while the South typically votes red in presidential elections, lots of other times the South votes blue for various reasons. A lot of it has to do with the same reason that large portions of Michigan that aren't the cities tend to vote blue. They're welfare Democrats, basically, is what it comes down to. But the good news is those are also the people that can be reached by uh, sort of I don't want to call it this, but kind of the Trump base, the Trump the Trumpian version of the right can be reached easily, or at least more easily, or the Trumpian right can more easily reach those people than any other version of the right really can. Which like I said, I have mixed feelings about that fact, but it is a fact, whether I like it or not. So, and even considering that fact, the fact that there's more COVID stupid in Mississippi, frankly, than I was expecting, which one other caveat, the place where we were staying is in an area that's known as being an artistic community. And there are, in fact, a lot of artist studios there, like an unusual amount per capita. And it also, well, we're staying in Natchez, which also has become a bit of a Hollywood hub. Not a lot of major things as of yet, but I was talking to one of the artists there. There's a lot of Hallmark movies that get filmed there, and the poor girl said it's basically been Christmas since August. Go figure. Um, and there's been a few bigger productions that have been down there, but nothing major as of yet. But the reason is essentially Mississippi pulled to Georgia and put a whole lot of tax incentives and everything for Hollywood to come and film movies there. And there's, of course, very good economic reasons to do something like that, because there aren't a lot of natural resources that Mississippi has that can't be gotten elsewhere that already has the infrastructure. So you've got to sell something. In this case, they're selling creativity, basically, or rather, they're selling cheap land and a whole lot of people that are willing to work for a lot less than the union-controlled people over in LA. So, anyway, enough of that. Well, actually, one more thing on Mississippi, and that's part of the reason we are willing to move is even, and this still applies even though there's more COVID stupid than I was anticipating. It was much easier to get a decent sized house with a decent amount of land so that we could start working on becoming more self-sufficient. We've got ourselves a 22-acre property with a 4-bed, 2-bath house, a couple of outbuildings, a nice barn, a little pond. So we're going to be pretty much, no matter what happens with work, COVID mandates, uh, you know, supply chain issues, all of that jazz. Within a couple of years, we should be probably not fully self-sufficient, because that's really, really hard to do, but about as close to it as we can reasonably get. We certainly will be within 5 years, I would say. All things being, so assuming nothing drastic happens before then, we should be sitting pretty darn good within 5 years. With have some animals that we raise for meat. We'll certainly have. I'm sure we'll have chickens easily by this time next year. Couple of horses, which that's mostly just because kids like horses, right? A few, perhaps a few other animals, that one or two other animals perhaps that serve a more practical purpose. We'll see how that goes. Certainly we'll be able to get a good garden going. There's already some fruit trees on the property. So we're, like I said, 2-3 years, we're going to have a good start. 5 years, we should be pretty well established. So yeah, that's kind of where things are at as far as the move, and some of the reasons why beyond just work, beyond just, the whole job situation. And if I get down there, it turns out, I've had enough with this nuclear nonsense. We did pretty well on selling our previous home, and this one was, at least to my mind, reasonably priced given the current market. So our mortgage is going to be pretty small. If I decide I don't like the nuclear thing anymore, I can find something else and move on from there. Also, it's we're close to a nice community. There's a Catholic church in town that we stopped and visited that I got a pretty good impression. I got a fairly good impression from. We'll see how it actually goes. Um, Unfortunately, there is, to my knowledge, no Latin Mass available in the area. It would actually be my preference unless they give a really good Novus Ordo, like the parish that I go to here in Michigan currently, which does both Latin and actually a very reverent Novus Ordo. Um, Preferences. But, I'll have to work with what's available, unfortunately. There is if the local church doesn't work out, it's true, Joseph. Um, there probably won't be now unless you've got it, unless there were a priest who is willing to just kind of be like, well, um, you know, be like, yeah, we're just gonna not talk about it too much. Um, I would love it if that happens, but we'll see. Um, Certainly, there is a minor basilica over in Natchez that it's beautiful. It's one of the most beautiful churches I've ever seen. Uh, I have we watched a mass um, back when we had COVID that was there, but it wasn't in the main church. It was actually kind of in their like school gym or something like that. Reason being that they had some roof damage due to a tornado, so they've had to repair things. But I think that's about done because the church is open to at least go into now. Um, so anyway, since I brought up Latin Mass, now I don't know the details of this yet, other than it sounds like it sucks. um, like really bad. Um, for those who pay attention to such things, uh, Pope Francis a while ago released some document that looked like it was going to be pretty restrictive of Latin Mass, like very restrictive, and there was a lot of consternation, justly so, about okay, what does this mean? Does this mean we're not going to like it's going to be almost impossible to have it, or I don't know? In the document looked really from what I could tell, looked really unclear, and for the most part, everyone just kind of be like, well, until this gets cleared up, we're just going to keep kind of doing what we've been doing, which cool. Well, I guess just today, the other day, whatever, they released some clarifying statements on that, and yeah, yeah, it sounds like it's about as bad as it could be, shy of just saying no. There shall be no Latin spoken anywhere ever unless approved by papal decree. Uh, from what I've gathered, and those in the chat can please correct me if my information is wrong on this. Again, I haven't really looked into it in depth. Uh, it sounds like maybe there can be like a mass at the cathedral for the diocese, and that's it, is what I'm gathering. Which, if that's accurate, is frankly insane. It, I, it, ugh, it sounds that just sounds absolutely bonkers to me. To be perfectly honest, I don't get it. I don't know why uh, anyone would want to do this, unless, of course, you're trying to kill the revival of the faith that's been going on amongst the young who have been flocking to the Latin Mass. Uh, I've mentioned. Okay, Joseph, thank you for the clarification, and Margot also. Basically, there can be an approved church that has it. I don't know if it's just one per diocese or anything that is it the bishop that approves, the pope has to approve it. I don't know. Um, okay, one Latin Mass a day. Thank you, Margot. Um, and apparently the FSSP, which is kind of like this is probably isn't the right term, but it's kind of like a separate order within the church that has a big traditional focus, and something called the ICKSP. I have no idea what that is. I've I've literally never heard of it. But okay, so it's sounds like it might not be as quite as bad as I feared, but it's still bad because as any trad worth their salt will point out, the Latin Mass is the traditional Mass of the Church. The idea that it was ever suppressed is frankly is ridiculous. It really is. Uh, Offering a vernacular, I think, was was perfectly fine and even a good idea. However, what was done to it, there's no denying that the Novus Ordo is a watered down version of the Mass. It's a watered down. Yeah, I'll go farther. Actually, I'll say it's a watered down alternative Mass because it's it bears a loose structural resemblance to the Latin Mass. That's a and that's that. Thank you. The other order, ICKSP, both Margot and Joseph got in on this one. Institute, dang it, stop posting a second. Jeez. Institute of Christ the King, the Sovereign Priest. That's kind of snazzy. Um, but anywho, no homily in Latin. That would be ridiculous. Literally, no one would know what was being said. Well, there'd be like those 5 people that actually know Latin and haven't just memorized how to say Latin words so they can do the prayers. Which, if you've done that, honestly, good for you. I think that's great. Um, but anywho, it it's kind of crazy. I, again, I completely disagree with this move. I think it's terrible. Um, it makes there's no good I can't foresee any really good reason for it. I know there's some people think that there's some distinct division in the church because of the rise of the Latin Mass. I would disagree. Well, I can only I only see I only see that if you pay an excessive amount of attention to the most radical corner of Tradcath Twitter, and I mean the most radical. I'm talking about like the people that are like literally everyone else is going to hell, no questions asked, and um, honestly, Pope Pius X was probably too modernist. if if you're paying an excessive amount of attention to those handful of dozens, those handful of dozens of people, then okay, but that represents such a small minority of even the trad community within the Catholic Church that it it's insane. It's insane that it would even be a remote concern. But if there's one thing that's true about, unfortunately, much of the hierarchy is that, and anyone who has a modernist tendency, they tend to really look for anyone with a traditional sensibility. And this applies, frankly, not just within the Catholic Church, but within Protestantism as well. It takes on a different form there. But within politics also, if somebody is got a more traditional sensibility, they tend any threat they might pose tends to be blown way the frick out of proportion. Like, there's an example of that mentality that my brother told me about back when he was still working on his master's in theology from Franciscan, and one of his professors was Alan Schreck, and for people who don't know, he is at least was back in the 90s and early 2000s, big name in Catholic apologetic circles. Maybe his most famous popular work was Catholic and Christian. It's just a basic apologetics 101 book. If you converted at any time from the late 90s, kind of through the 2000s, you probably read that book, or at least you heard of it. Anyway, Shrek made mention of the division in the church since Vatican II, and he actually blamed it on the SSPX crowd. I'm like, really? I don't I don't think so at all. I don't think they're responsible for any like significant division or of any significant move away from the faith on the part of the faithful as a whole. I don't think it was that mentality at all. I think it might have been the other direction. You need to look there, pal. But whatever. Now that said, there is of course also a movement uh, and and Mario, yeah, we butted heads on this a little while ago on the Twitters that I'm just going to stay home. Okay, I'm just going to stay home rather than going to a Novus Ordo. All right, I completely understand being upset by this. You're right to be, frankly, and this applies to anyone who's having this. This isn't just point out any one person. To be perfectly honest, I've seen this sentiment expressed elsewhere. I get being upset. I really, really, really do. And you're right to be. However, I guess this is where we've got to really, really ask ourselves, what do we love more? Do we love Jesus in the Eucharist more, or do we love the way the Mass is presented to us more? And I know it's rough because I know on one hand, you feel like if you're going to the Novus Ordo, you're enabling it, you're justifying the decision to suppress the Latin Mass. I get it, I do, but this is bigger than that. Jesus is bigger than that. Now, that's not to say there isn't a line. There, I do believe there can be a line where you're like, no, I'm sorry, the disrespect shown to Christ is so great that it would you would be legitimizing some sort of actual there is a line somewhere where you could say no, going legitimizes some sort of blasphemy or something like that. However, comma, to think, and I'm thinking of something, like just imagine like the clown masses we've all heard the horror stories of, right? That I think that's a clear example. But there's a difference where, okay, the local parish is doing that. Yeah, you can definitely stay the heck away from that because there's some other, better place to go. And that is one individual priest or parish as a whole that is endorsing such nonsense. Now, if the church, if it comes down from on high, basically, if it comes down from the Vatican, that this order, this given order is legitimate, it's licit, it may not be the best, it may not be the best, but church says it's licit, therefore it is, therefore it doesn't cross that that blasphemy line. And for any Protestants who might check this out, there's a lot more going on there that it's a whole nother thing, man. So when it comes to the authority of the church and how that plays out, different conversation. Now, again, if the church says the Lord is good, it kind of can't cross that line into blasphemy, unless, of course, you're a sedevacantist, in which case you're not paying any attention to what the Pope says anyway, really. So while it sucks, and I feel you, in the end, find the best one that you can, even if you got to drive a while for it. Like the parish I go, I rarely go to my local parishes for that reason. They deliver the most banal, watered down Novus Ordo. It's ugh. I it's Other than there's particular times when there's family stuff going on or whatever, um, I'd rather go to the Latin Mass that's like 45 minutes away. That said, that same parish that does the Latin Mass, they also do, yes, Margot, an actual Reverend Novus Ordo, um, loaded with Latin, as it turns out. Uh, yes, I'll grant you, yes, there are different prayers and stuff that are missing, and obviously, uh, it's still a Novus Ordo, although the untrained eye wouldn't even recognize it as such. Uh, but in any case, find the best you can and go and do make it a sacrifice, because it is. It is. Um, there's no getting around that. Um, so and 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 I honestly and also one other thing on this, and then I'll move on from the mass talk. If there is any legitimate way to oppose this move, if petition your parish priest, the bishop, Rome, do it, please. I agree. I want you to do it. Any of you out there in Tradcath land, please, by all means, follow any sort of legitimate means we have of working around this, of petitioning to change this nonsense. Pray, pray that frankly, pray that Francis be converted and he actually become a good Catholic. Yeah, I said that out loud. Maybe I shouldn't have. I don't know. um, right then I was like, too far, maybe. I don't know. But I'm not a fan, but I don't think I've made any secret of that. So yes, please, definitely, because I don't like this at all. Ugh, it's disgusting. It really is. Um, and yeah, Joseph, as you say, too busy trying to get the COVID crazy bishops to stop requiring the vaccine. Absolutely. That's and that's a whole nother fight. Which yeah, it shouldn't. Ugh. And anyway, and yes, uh, Margot. Actually, honestly, I think I'd actually, I'd actually love to have you um, on to discuss this, but we should probably let the dust settle a little bit from it and see how this winds out actually playing out, and then we can discuss some stuff again, and just kind of see where things are at with this whole nonsense. But moving on, I believe I mentioned Omicron. Omicron. Yeah, literally, no one's died from it. A tiny portion of people have actually gone to the hospital. About a tiny portion of people go to the hospital for like anything. Having the vaccine means you're more likely to get it, apparently. Um, and even if you do get it, for almost everybody, it is a cold. Like literally, just a cold. Not a flu, not a souped up flu. Cold. And that's it. Nonetheless, despite the fact that's where it's supposed, wherever, you know, it supposedly originated in South Africa. And everyone there is like, yeah, not a big deal. Y'all just chill. Obviously, the leaders of the West are like, oh my gosh, run for the hills again. Everybody locked down, duck and cover, hide the women and children. And then in 2 months, we'll bring out our dead and it'll be great. Yeah. Like Europe is going into lockdown mode again. I'm noticing. England was, I think, the last significant European country to require vax passes. Now they are. Good job, guys, because that's worked great everywhere else. of course, and here again, there's a fresh propaganda push for the vaccines, for the mandates. All of a sudden, you're seeing the reminders coming out. Well, in January, whatever the heck the date is now, there's going to be severe penalties if you don't comply. Yeah. Sure. And yeah, I know some appeals court just said, "Oh yeah, that mandate thing can totally go forward." We all know this. We all knew this was going to go to the Supreme Court. We all knew that. Um, Certainly, more courts have smacked down this mandate than have upheld it. The mandate itself has been changed significantly as we've gone along. Um, I know there was talk of exempting defense contractors. Uh, it has been changed to exempt utilities. No, you don't hear much about this in the news because they don't want you to know how badly they're getting their butts kicked on the ground. And that's the truth. Just about every day you hear of some company backing off a mandate. Yes, there's also others that are trying to enforce them. That's true. They're going because they're afraid they're going to get hammered by the government, even if not from an explicit mandate that is actually on the books. No. They're also, let's face it, this government is so freaking corrupt. And I don't just mean the Biden administration, I mean the whole freaking thing. The whole federal government, pretty much from top to bottom, is a corrupt cesspool. There's a reason why Trump's drain the swamp slogan works so well, because we all know it's a freaking swamp. It needs desperately to be drained of all of the snakes and alligators and every other predator that's in there. We know this for a fact. Okay. It's not just them. It's the whole freaking edifice. And they will lean on companies through all kinds of little back channels. They will make all kinds of little threats that are never quite explicit enough for you to take it to court, even if you record it, which would probably be illegal to record federal people telling you things anyway. I don't know. Maybe it would, maybe not. They will lean on these companies for as long as they think they can get away with it. Now, of course, if all of the workers just say, "Nah, not happening," eventually those threats and everything won't be able to be put into place, because you'd have to be putting them into place everywhere. You will cripple everything, and faster than they want, because I'm certainly convinced that they don't mind taking a few economic hits, but I don't think they want a total collapse. That's why the exemptions that have been made, because they know there's certain things they just can't get away with. They just can't. There's certain hits they know they can't take. So the point here is they are definitely using Omicron to kind of they're using it to mount a final assault. And that's what this is. This is their last gasp. This is and I honestly, I fully expect them to use all their ammunition on this. There will be nothing left when they'll have nothing left when they're done with this push, because that's it. Because if Omicron turns into the giant, and I hate this phrase, but nothing burger that we all think it'll be. Excuse me a moment. There we go. We all expect this to kind of fizzle out, because again, it's a mild cold. They know that once we all realize that, the game is up. There won't be any other cards they have left to play other than just pure naked force. That will be it. And as we all know, Americans privately have more guns than most countries, so than most militaries. Probably, maybe more than every other military on the planet. I don't know. It's a lot. No, there's no organization, but ask the Afghanis if there needs to be. Come on. And yes, Joseph, I don't think they'll give up in terms of trying to get control and push their power, but they will have to find another mechanism. It will set them back. If we play our cards right, it'll give us the window to actually finally go on the offensive and start, through peaceable means, mind you, start actually taking things back and actually drain the friggin' swamp. It's possible. Do I think it likely will manage to be that successful? Eh. But I do think we can resist them on this. And yes, they COVID will be done at that point. Doesn't mean that there won't be another arrow in the quiver, but it'll be a different arrow. It'll be a different trick. Something else. I mean, there's all kinds of theories out there. Will they pivot to another virus? Will they pivot to a cyber attack? Will they pivot to I don't know, China invading Taiwan? I don't know. Climate change, of course, is a thing that everybody thinks they'll pivot to. Maybe, maybe not. It'll be something. And of course, if they're smart, they'll wait a couple of years before trying to make another move. But I think they're impatient. Devil always overplays his hand, or plays it too soon, which I think is what happened here. Because America is, I think, the last major Western nation standing that hasn't given into the vax pass, that hasn't actually given into the mandates yet. Yes, I know there's a federal mandate, but enough people are ignoring it that it doesn't matter that much. I know there's some places that have enforced it, and some people have lost their jobs because of it. Obviously, it matters a lot to you guys, and it sucks. And I feel you, man. But we haven't corporately, as a nation, given into this yet. And I don't believe we will. Because honestly, if you've gone this far without giving in, why on earth would you give in now? Honestly. Yes, I know, because the threat hasn't quite been real yet. Because the gun of the mandate hasn't been held up against your head yet. It's just been kind of waved around on the other side of the room. I get it. But what does it say? How are you going to feel about yourself if you held out this long, and then they finally do hold that gun, hold that whole mandate gun up to your head, and then you give in? You get, honestly, a couple of years from now, are you going to be able to live with yourself? Ask yourself that question. Are you? And I know, trust me, I know you can be, well, I've got kids, I've got to provide. I understand that because I have kids. I have to provide. But think about the example you're setting for them. You give in now, you teach them that you might as well just give in, period. In fact, better to do it sooner than later. You know what I mean? Why fight at all if you're just going to give in at the end of the day? Why not just make life easier sooner? Or do you teach them that you fight for what you believe in? That you're willing to take the hits, you're willing to make the sacrifices. And yeah, oh yeah, there will be sacrifices. Frankly, that's part of why, again, going back to the beginning of this, part of why we made the choices we did when it came to looking for a property. The mortgage is small enough that we can scrape that nonsense together if we gotta. We could scrape it together. I can scrape it together, chopping wood, doing odd jobs, repairing fences. Trust me, be able to make it work if I have to. Not that I want to. I can. But if it comes down to it, if I got to go work at the local gas station and then work, have two gas station jobs and then sell my labor on other things as we go along, so be it. Excuse me again. Sorry. Usually if I got something to drink, I can avoid the coughing, but again, lots of talking. Um, let's see. Joe's got a question here. Well, I'm reading that. You know, Margot sums up my little rant of the last couple of minutes very well. Okay, Joseph here is asking, do you think people will wake up to the cultural destruction of the past 50 years and try to fight back? Or are people drawing the line at CRT and transsexualism for kids and not going back? Um, honestly, that's Joseph. That's kind of that's a $64,000 question, isn't it? Because I know a lot of people talk about how Glenn Youngkin was a massive social conservative win and this, that, and the other thing. I disagree, not just because Youngkin is really just another rhino who, as others have pointed out, found a wave and wrote it. He's a more astute Mitt Romney, is what it comes down to. And I don't know ultimately. We got a couple of randos showing up in the chat. Hello, gentlemen. I'm assuming gentlemen, maybe not ladies. I don't know. Welcome. um. Anyway, I don't know. I don't know if this is something where people are actually going to do some serious reflection. Be like, okay, yeah, how did we get to this whole CRT thing being a thing? And the question is, I, I want to say yes. I want to say that people will realize, Zuko, dude, I don't know you, man. Who are you on Twitter? Um, so will they? Again, it's anyone's guess at this point. I think we have an opportunity because of CRT to actually reach some of these people. I do believe that's true. Oh, Zuko's Judge. Hey, Judge, how you doing? I am happy that I am your alternative to Netflix. Yeah, and if 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 the Mask of Shy is not a random somebody I know, identify thyself, sir or madam. Um, so I know I'm sort of rambling at the moment, and I'm sorry about that. But we do have an opportunity to reach people and actually point out a CRT didn't come out of nowhere. The transgenderism stuff didn't just come out of it just didn't just come out of the blue. It didn't just come out of left field. This has been building for a long freaking time. And I was actually just thinking about this earlier today, as a matter of fact, just how long it's really been building. This goes back probably about 15 years ish, maybe more. I can't remember what I was reading where I stumbled across this, but I stumbled across something. People were talking about a reaction that Dave Mustaine, who, for those who don't know, is a lead singer of Megadeth. And again, if you don't know, Dave Mustaine, at some point, I think back in the late 90s, actually became a Christian. Late 90s, early 2000s, I'm not sure which. And a fairly serious Christian of some sort of Protestant variety. And again, he's very open about it. There's even certain songs in their catalog that he doesn't do anymore, specifically because of their content. And excuse me again. And he saw some what we just back then just called a transvestite walk out of the women's room. And he was talking about how that kind of upset him. And if his wife had been in the bathroom, he probably would have gone up and punched the dude who was wearing the dress. Now, that's not the interesting part of this. Nor is the fact that there was a random transvestite that Dave Mustaine, uh, you know, you know, ran into it at some random store. What's interesting was the reaction to it, and there were a lot of people who were just like, "I can't believe who were very not just upset at Mustaine's reaction. They were they were unable to comprehend his reaction. Just like you see like all over the place now. People are like, I can't believe he would even think this way. Why would anybody think this way? This is absolutely insane, is the way these people were talking. Reflecting back on that, I was like, wow, that was kind of on the what we would call the fringes of society back then. But these were late teen, early 20-year-olds who were absolutely convinced of this particular point of view. Well, those same late teens, early 20-year-olds are now in their 30s and probably 40s. They're the one. Those are the same people now who are teaching kids in our schools. They're the ones who are pushing this. This didn't come out of nowhere. This has been building for a long time, and I think pointing that out to people that this stuff didn't just come from nowhere will help. Will help sort of roll back some of that, some of the cultural rot that we've experienced. But I think it's going to take longer. Oh, hey, Mask, yeah. Uh, wow, Snyder Cut vid. That's a completely different topic than this. But yeah, that as you'll see, I jump around all over the freaking place. So anyway, yeah, we might. If we survive as a society, it will be because we don't just stop the critical race theory nonsense and the transgenderism nonsense. It'll be because we actually roll things back to a degree. How far, how much, how we do it, that's a lot of different conversations. I'm gonna have to call this quit soon because it's about to get to be a big deal. Uh, oh, hey Matthew, how you doing? So, yeah, there is. I'd say there's a real chance that if we make it past the next 10 years or so, we're gonna be doing okay. At least heading in the right direction. But it's gonna get worse. It's gonna get at least a little bit worse before it starts to get better yet. And we'll continue to split off. We'll continue to balkanize, at least for the immediate future. It's really going to depend, frankly, Joseph. No, Margot, I don't have the COVID. I had the COVID already, so there. It's frankly, Joseph, Margot, Clay, Judge, Mask. I don't know how old you are or anything like that, but you are all to different degrees younger than I am. I reckon it's going to depend, frankly, on you guys. Uh, it's going to depend how many people there are like you out there who are fed up with this nonsense and are willing to actually stand up and change it and actually go and do all the things that all the, you know, the people that get paid to talk about this stuff, say, not just going out to vote, but actually going out and getting involved in your local in the local political scene with the school boards and city councils and all of that sort of thing. Start getting involved there, and of course, even more importantly, in your local churches, so that your local churches aren't taken over. Because again, a lot of us are in the A lot of us are Catholic. We all know the issues we've got with our own hierarchy, right? We talked about that earlier. But the Protestants are having their own issues, not just the main lines. Those they've been having issues for a long time, um, probably as long as we have, maybe longer, in terms of the current situation. But even the evangelicals who up till now have been relatively orthodox on at least social matters. Now they've been losing the thread for a little while now, as a lot of evangelicals will admit and point out. That's an issue that they're struggling with. Um, so all of you, no matter where you're at, and I'm going to actually come. That's a good point. I'm going to come to it in just a second, Matthew. Um, start getting involved in your church, whatever your church is, and stop the stuff before it gets started. Going to make a book recommendation. Get SJW's Always Lie by Vox Day. Vox has his issues, which I'm not going to get into here just at the moment. I'm not a big fan of him personally, but SJW's Always Lie, I read that years ago, and it lays out perfectly the methods that the SJWs use to take over institutions. Now, I don't necessarily agree with all the methods he suggests to fight them, but fight them we must, and we have to at least begin by recognizing their methods. That part I agree with 100%. So, by all means, just get a Kindle version of it, read it. It's very insightful. Strongly recommended. Now, to Matthew's point, which is they, meaning the crazy SJW leftist, psychotypes, they are, in a way, they are their own worst enemy, and people do can turn on them when they get too crazy, which we're seeing a little bit now. Again, the devil likes to overplay his hand, and he's pushed a little too far, a little too fast. But at the same time, I wonder if they just continue to chip away for another 5-10 years. Would it have been too late? Would we even? How many people would be left to push back who weren't already kind of swallowed up by it? I don't know. But the point is, we are where we are, which means they have put the pedal to the metal, and more people are kind of waking up to just how crazy things are. Now, the right ways to fight against that and everything, how to turn it back, where we want to turn it back to, the different policies we want to get involved in. Those are going to be all fights that we have to have, and we will have, whether we would like to or not. We're going to have these fights over on the right or on the right, on the Trumpian right. There's a lot of factions within the conservative libertarian-ish world. And yes, I'm lumping them together for now because what everyone thinks of libertarians, they tend to be very, very anti-woke as a rule, at least the ones that I associate with. And those are going to be ugly fights, and it's going to mean that progress on turning back the social degradation is going to be frustratingly slow to non-existent for a while. I don't want to hear it, but that's the way it's going to be. It's going to be a tough fight because we're going to get pitted against one another because there are going to be issues that come up that divide us. We'll only be able to present a united front against the enemy, against the enemy's advances, not necessarily present a united front to actually take ground back, because we won't even necessarily agree on which ground to turn back. So as far as that goes, ready your arguments now. If you haven't already, get your argument set now for where you would like to turn it back to, how you want to get there, and why that's good, why people should go along with your plan or with the plan that you happen to endorse, whatever. You know what I mean? It is best that we do that sooner rather than later. Don't put it off, but at the same time, be willing to make common cause with people that otherwise you're fighting with if it means stopping the stopping the left from taking so much as another inch of ground. That's what we got to. So when it comes to the front line, be united. Be united against the enemy. Behind the lines, when we're in the tent plotting, planning the offensive, that's where you have the arguments. Don't have the arguments necessarily on the front line, so to speak. Be willing to reach across and make common cause with whoever you can to stop wherever it is the left is trying to advance right now. That means, yes, a national conservative is going to have to hang out with a libertarian when it comes to, stopping, stopping CRT, perhaps, or whatever. You could, I'm sure you could think of examples. Catholics and Protestants have done a great job of working together against abortion. Thankfully, we're gonna have to make common cause on other issues like that. It's going to be interesting. And yes, as Mask points out, I'm yes, Joseph Nathan is exactly who I was. Keep is exactly the kind of conservative I had in mind. But by all means, it's just going to have to happen sometimes. Have the fights elsewhere. But anyway, back to what Mask was saying. Uh, yes, there is a strong crisis of meaning where they're looking to find their meaning. That's another thing. I think the big thing is they need to realize that meaning does not come from within. That's what that's something that Western society has to just come to grips with. Your meaning isn't coming from within. There isn't meaning that you just give to that you just give to life by saying, my purpose is I don't freaking know, growing a garden, whatever. My purpose is making the world safe for pink unicorns, whatever it is. No, that's not that's not real meaning. Meaning in life is not whatever meaning you choose to give it. I don't care what all these idiotic um, subjectivists have to say. It doesn't make any sense. It's just admitting that life is meaningless. It's just a way that you trick yourself. You gotta, that's why I have more respect for certain atheists like John Paul Sartre, who were willing to look at life and be like, yep, it's meaningless. And it's all just an abyss. And that's the thing. And one interviewer asked him, so it's like, so why do anything? Why write? I don't know, it's just what we do. We expand our bubble, but that's all it is. It's a bubble. It's it might look shiny on the outside, but it's empty and meaningless. So I get those guys I respect because they look at the hard truths of their philosophy and don't hide from it. And again, I truly and I truly honestly respect that sort of thing. Although interestingly, I learned recently on an interview with Patrick Coffin. For some reason, the author's name is escaping me, and it annoys me because it shouldn't be. It's Eric Metaxas, I think it was. He's wrote a book recently about the death of atheism, and he mentioned that Sartre and Albert Camus eventually became theists before they died. did not know that. That doesn't mean they became full-on Latin mass going Catholics or anything like that, but they did eventually renounce their atheism, which I find again fascinating. Um, so it's that is just interesting to me. Like you can only stare into the abyss for so long before you're like, holy crap, no, there is something there. It kind of reminds me of a quote from Heisenberg, actually. And I might have mentioned this before, but it's the first sips of the cup of science will seem to wash away all religion. But if you drink the cups of science to its dregs, drink it all the way down, there again you find God. Yeah, that's Heisenberg, y'all. Uh, so, and and yes, mask. There is, of course, uh, people are trying to find meaning in getting humanity to their next stage of evolution, which is basically transhumanism, unity of man and machine, which to where there's basically no difference. I don't mean just like Darth Vader, more man, more machine now than man. I mean no difference. It's called the singularity. For those who don't know the lingo, um, I know people are definitely trying to push us that way, and and even this is where Elon Musk scares me. Because he did that whole Neuralink thing, which is basically uh, putting some handy dandy tech in your brain and basically letting the internet straight in. And then I think about his Starlink, which is basically internet via satellite, high speed internet via satellite, which I know at least one person who has it and says it's amazing. Um, I'm just like, that just sounds like a bad idea. Putting tech in my brain that could be getting signals straight from like freaking space. Nope, not doing it. Normally I like Musk, but I don't like that idea. That idea scares the crap out of me. What are you telling me that Clay is his middle name? Sorry, squirrel. Oh, gosh, I actually ran on a little bit longer than I expected to. That's fascinating. Uh, yeah, CRT is basically a cult, Matthew. I don't disagree. Uh, you got to convince people of that, but again, I completely agree. I don't know what else. What else should I talk about? I've had a couple of good rants here. Uh, I could make one more. I could make one more good thing on the whole Ukraine situation. I suppose yeah, I brought it up. Screw it. Let's go there. Why should we care if Russia invades Ukraine? Because Putin wants to recover the glory of the Soviet Union. He's called it literally the greatest tragedy of the 20th century that it fell. All right. I am not particularly inclined to see um, Putin's, uh, I'm not interested in seeing Putin controlling more people, more of Europe, more of anything for that matter. And yes, I know Ukraine used to be part of the Soviet Union. Well, the Soviet Union doesn't freaking exist anymore now, does it? Also, if if every country has the right to reclaim certain things that were within its historical boundaries, well, then Britain has a right to try to reclaim us, don't they? Yes. By that same logic. In fact, by that same logic, we should just it would make just as much sense for the Cherokee Nation to just reclaim whatever chunk of land they happen to be in control of when we showed up. Same with the Iroquois and any other Indian tribe that still exists. And sure, I'll even grant that a lot of Ukrainians want to be part of Russia, and if that is the will of their people, then we should definitely not go to war for that. Obviously, if it's actually the will of the people, and I'm not. If they were to have like a referendum on it, I'm certainly not equipped over here to say whether or not the results will be legit or not. That said, if you actually believe that 98% of Crimea really wanted to be part of Russia, yeah, I'm not buying that at all, even a little. But that said, it's possible the majority of Ukrainians do legitimately want to be, in which case, well, that's what you want. Then I really don't think in that case, we don't have any legitimate grounds to stop it. That said, if Putin were to truly launch a full-scale invasion, that's a different story. One, Ukraine is kind of the buffer zone to the rest of Europe. I'm not interested in Putin controlling more energy flow, more energy flowing into Europe whatsoever. It's going to make his power and influence grow within that region. Not interested in that. Same with Clay. I'm not sure I understand your comment necessarily. Also, let's be honest. If I strongly suspect if Putin does launch a full-scale invasion of Ukraine, it will be timed with China to launching an invasion of Taiwan. Okay, can we stop both? I really don't know the answer to that question. Can we go to full-scale war with both? Probably not. In that case, we may need to pick. And I'm not interested in. I'm glad. Put it this way: I'm glad I don't have to make that choice. It would not be fun. And of course, in the meantime, there's a lot of other things between doing nothing and full-on war. You know, Trump had a simple policy of containment. Here's your box. Stay in it, or you get a Moab. And more Moabs will follow until you go back in your box. Now, a valid response to that would be, yeah, that works for little tin pot Middle Eastern countries, but can we really expect it to work with a power like Russia or China? Frankly, I think that's a good question. However, I do think it can, at least if there's potential for it to be able to, without significant retaliation to us, at least within America, like the actual geographic boundaries of America. Because neither Russia or China has the power projection capability that we do. Particularly China does not have at least the ability to project physical force, anything like we do. Now, they do have the ability to project cyber force. They've demonstrated, it has been said they demonstrated that significantly in the past. There are very significant claims that they've managed to penetrate deeply into our defense network in the past. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. But the claims are definitely out there, and they've been made by people that would be considered by many credible. So we'll see. Russia, they have, I think, probably more ability to project physical force, but still, they can't match ours. Not even close. Short of launching nukes, which they're not going to do. Putin may be a ruthless dictator, but he's not an idiot. Xi, I don't think so. The only way he wouldn't do it directly. He'd do it through North Korea. Because, yeah, I totally think North Korea is just an attack dog that China lets have a little bit of leash every now and then to keep us distracted. But I do think especially if Russia just acts on its own, not coordinating anything with China, we either deal with them now or we either deal with them while they're physically invading Ukraine. I don't mean a referendum. That's different. But if they just roll tanks, then in that case, we would do well to stop them sooner rather than later. Because if you think they're going to stop there, you're nuts. That doesn't mean they're going to do it all at once. They're just going to roll through Ukraine and then, you know, on into the Baltic states and into Poland and so on and so forth. No. That, it would be a slow process. It would take years. He'd spend a couple of years at least consolidating Ukraine before moving on from there. But if you think they're not going to move on, you're deluding yourself, frankly. I mean, just about the only country that hasn't sought to expand itself territorially that has the ability to do so is us. And that's since we, went from sea to shining sea and, consolidated that after, defeating the various the various native tribes. Once we did that, we kind of stopped, more or less. Oh, and of course, it wasn't just the native tribes. We took the southwest from the Spanish, but at some point we said enough. And kind of, yeah, like I said, just stopped expanding militarily, which is frankly odd in world history. Uh, oh, hey, Jesus L is clearly a he's clearly a fellow Catholic with this comment. Concentrate Russia, they make the heart of the Blessed Mother, which, for those who don't know, was one of the things that Mary in the apparition at Fatima said, y'all ought to do that. I'm paraphrasing. And there's been much debate over whether or not John Paul II actually fulfilled that particular recommendation when he consecrated the whole world to Mary's Immaculate Heart. Naturally, people would be like, "What? Russia's obviously part of the world, right? So that's included." And that has been, I think, the majority opinion. But there are also others that, no, she didn't say consecrate the whole world. She said consecrate Russia specifically. So, put it this way. It wouldn't hurt nothing to go ahead and make a specific consecration of Russia to Mary's Immaculate Heart, right? I say go ahead and do that specific thing, just to make, at the very least, make sure bases are covered here. Whether it, John Paul's consecration counts or not, I'm going to leave that one up to God. But it wouldn't hurt, like I said. Cover your base, man. Why not? Just saying. So anyway, a lot of times you got to deal with problems before they become too big of problems. You know what I'm saying? I'm Mr. L. I have to say, it kind of goes, your comment there about let Russia take Ukraine. Russia has Byzantine roots. It kind of goes back to that same logic that I mentioned, where it's like, well, if we're going to go with so and so's got such and such roots, that's kind of the same argument that people used to say we should just, give our land back to the natives, or again, Great Britain could be like, well, we'd kind of like the sun to not set on our empire anymore. We'd like the sun to not set on it ever again. So we'll be having America back now. Not that they have the physical ability, but you get my point. Just because you have roots in a certain place doesn't mean you necessarily get to claim it especially after you've lost it, and especially if it's been a while. And it's been a little bit since the Soviet Union broke up. I put it this way: applying that logic consistently opens up numerous cans of worms. that would that gets you to a point where it's like, well, where do you stop? And usually that line of thinking, there isn't necessarily a limiting principle that people bring up. This Russia has a, yeah, I'll give you that. I suppose there's a difference there. Um, but again, that gets into kind of a, I mean, right there, you apply that, that's might makes right type of situation. I'm not, but at this end of the day, I'm not a huge fan of Russia controlling any more territory and having any more influence in Europe than it already does, which she's already trying to rush in and fill the vacuum left by us weakening. And there's lots of different ways in which we've weakened. Would us stopping an invasion of Ukraine accelerate that weakening? If we lost, it would. That would definitely be uh, that would definitely be a potential risk. If we weren't willing to really throw down, then yeah, we'd lose, and that would weaken us farther. Absolutely. If were willing to throw down, I guess it depends on how tangled it gets and um, how evident it is that a large portion of the Ukrainians would actually prefer to just be part of Russia anyway. Again, I don't know what the numbers are on that. I don't know how to evaluate. I'm not equipped to evaluate them anyway. So again, if there's a referendum, knock yourselves out, guys. I don't think you should, but it's on you guys. And I think on that note, lady and gentlemen, I'm assuming that Margot is the only lady in the audience, assuming Margot's still there. Um, thanks a lot for tuning in for this long and rather rambling thing of just me airing out a few random thoughts, as it says in the title. I will not be back next week because it is Christmas, and I'm not doing a thing on Christmas. The following week, I'm planning on having Clay on, actually. We're going to finish that conversation that we got started with a couple of weeks ago, but I had to cut short because I had the COVID and I was having kind of a rough time that particular day. And I'm gonna try to watch Ford versus Ferrari before that. Yep, Margot, sorry, we talked about it a couple of weeks ago. It's just how it is. I'm trying to watch Ford vs Ferrari before that. I was gonna watch it on HBO Max because it was there, but then when I went to watch it, it's not there anymore. What the frickety frack is up with that? I don't know. But fortunately, the local library actually had it in their store for sale for like $1.50. So I picked it up and I will get that going. And then we can pick up our conversation about the history of cars and NASCAR. It'll be all kinds of fun. You know, Mask, I guess you're from Peru, if I remember right. So I don't know. We'll have to. You know what? I got a friend of mine whose family is, was it Peru or was it Chile? Somewhere in South America, by golly. If he's from Peru, I'll have to get him on, or maybe you could even come on and talk about issues going on in Peru because I don't know squat about it, man. I know Peru is a landlocked country in South America, and not too much, not too much else. I could probably pick a few things here and there, but that's about it. Um, And on that note, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for the lively chat. That was very, very, that's one of the liveliest ones I've had in a while, and I appreciate it greatly. And until next time, y'all, have yourselves a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And as always,